What's going on, everybody? We are back with another DFS video. Today, going to be discussing the upcoming PGA slate this weekend for the Players Championship. Super excited for this slate. As you can tell, I'm actually in my golf attire right now. Just got done hitting the links a little bit earlier, scoring 100, which I'm very proud of. Just picked up golf earlier this year. Figured it was a good hobby to pick up during the COVID situation, and I am not good at all, but getting the hang of it, and it's super fun just being out there. So looking to continue getting better at golf and hopefully start scoring under the hundreds soon, getting under the triple digits. But yeah, that's not why you're here. You don't care about that. You're here because we have the Players Championship coming up this weekend, and it is a really loaded slate. So really excited to dive into the slate, give you my thoughts on who I am looking at targeting for my lineups. As you know, my content is more geared to people that play kind of a single lineup approach and looking to take down some huge winnings using just one lineup, as opposed to using an optimizer and kind of getting multiple exposures to pretty much every golfer in the field, right? That's just not my style of playing. Although golf is one of the sports where I usually try to manually build about 3 different lineups, just because there is so much variance in golf, right? Anybody could win any weekend. And so I like to get, at least a little bit different players in my lineups, but I for sure try to use at least a core build of players that I like. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Some of those players that I like for a core build of the Players Championship. So let's go ahead and dive into it. First of all, the course. Players Championship is held at TPC Sawgrass in Florida. It's a par 72 course, just under 7,200 yards. Water hazards are one of the main things that can cause some high scores for some golfers and cause some real issues out there on the course. So definitely something to keep in mind when you're looking at the field, right? Trying to figure out who you're going to play. Keep in mind that water hazards are really a huge issue here on this course. And so trying to find those players that are better as on their approaches, on their iron shots, right? Those second shots, getting on the green. That's going to be a real key thing that's going to differentiate who wins this tournament and who, fails to make the cut. So that's something that I'm looking at pretty heavily. This course also contains 4 par 5s, and we are looking at Bermuda style greens, as is usually the case down there in Florida. So weather, not really a concern from what I've seen this weekend. So it should be a really great weekend to watch some golf and look at this highly loaded field, which gets us on to our next point, the field, right? So 154 man field. Again, all the studs are here. This is going to be a super loaded field. 28 out of the top of 30 golfers are going to be there this weekend trying to take home that Players Championship. So the approach that I am probably going to be taking is more of a balanced approach as opposed to a stars and scrubs approach, right? There's only, I think, 4 players above that 10K range anyways, but I don't think this is a weekend that you have to stack, 2 10K plus players and then like 2, sub 7K players. I think this is definitely a weekend that you can go of more a balanced approach, just because this field is so loaded. There are guys, in the 9K, 8K, even 7K range that have a real shot and real possibility of winning this thing, as opposed to, usually where we see kind of just only the top 5 have a real legitimate chance of winning it. So really, it's going to be a really exciting weekend of golf, and I will definitely be tuned in as well, checking this out. So let's go ahead and get into my favorite plays, or kind of break it down range by range of who I'm looking at and look at who I'm going to try to build my core around going into this weekend. So starting off in the 10K plus range, like I mentioned earlier, there's only like 4 guys in that range, right? We have Xander, Rory, John Rahm, and DJ. Of course, you can't go wrong with picking any one of those guys. But if I had to pick my 2 favorites as of right now are going to be Mr. John Rahm and Mr. Rory Mcilroy. Rory's been really kind of getting back to the Rory that we're used to lately. Really dialed in with his driver off the tee, and starting to get some of those approach shots falling as well. And so this is a course where he has some good history on, and I can definitely see picking on Rory here if I wanted to pick one of these studs. As I mentioned earlier, I don't think you need to go a two-stud approach. So I'm definitely not going to be building a lineup where I jam both of these guys in. I don't even know if I'm going to get to any of these guys, just because I do like the more balanced kind of sub 10K, above 7K range a lot. And so I might skip out on both of these guys. But if I had to pick someone from this range, for me, these two would be it, Mr. Jon Rahm and Rory McIlroy. Going forward to the 9K range, two guys I really do like in this range are going to be Justin Thomas and my man Collin Morikawa God. I'm a huge Collin Morikawa fan, just simply because of the fact last year in one of the tournaments, he actually won me over $10,000 on DraftKings. So ever since that day, I've been obsessed with Collin Morikawa. His iron play is just phenomenal. Super young guy and has a really bright future in this game. So I really enjoy watching him play. And again, he's the Morikawa God, right? It's gonna be able to dial in with those irons and really get you some really good scoring. And at 94, 9,500, I think he has a really good chance at winning the TPC this weekend. So Collin Morikawa God, definitely one of my favorite plays on the slate going into this weekend. And same can be said for Justin Thomas. This is the first time in a while that I remember JT being sub 10K. And so this is an ultimate buy low opportunity for me on JT. One of, used to be top player in the world, right around that top 5 player in the world range. And to see JT sub 10K or below like Xander doesn't make sense to me. And so I will definitely be getting a lot of Justin Thomas in my lineups this weekend, as well as one of my core players. Again, I think he just has a really solid chance of winning this thing, and sub 10K, definitely lock in JT going into this weekend. Into the 8K range, we have Tyrell Hatton and Paul Casey. Both of these guys are priced really closely together, and I do like both of them at this mid 8K range. So starting off with Tyrell Hatton, I saw that he was a pretty popular play last week and then ultimately, kind of bombed and didn't do so well. And so that just makes me like him more this week, because I think people might not want to go back to him the following week. But I like the way he suits up for this course, and he's still a kind of top 20 golfer in the world. And so I do like Tyrell Hatton for this tournament as well at his price point. And then same can be said for Paul Casey, 8,400, Mr. Paul Casey. I think his price point is a little bit too cheap. If he was in that upper 8K range, that would make more sense. But here at 8,400, I think we can just slide Paul Casey right in there, especially if you're going with a balanced build approach. Both of these guys work perfectly to give you someone in that mid 8K range and help build out your lineup. So for the 8K range, these are definitely my top two boys, Tyrell Hatton and Paul Casey. Going into the 7K range, there are 3 golfers that I really like in this range as well to, again, help fill out that balanced approach. So starting at the top at 7,900 with the Mr. Tommy Fleetwood, going right underneath him with Louis O, and then going at the very bottom of the 7K range with a Chris Kirk. So starting with Tommy, I think he is way too cheap for his caliber, coming in at 7,900. I think he should be priced, kind of around those guys we mentioned earlier with the Tyrell Hattons and the Paul Caseys in that mid 8K range. And I just think he's way too cheap. And that's the theme I'm looking for. If you can't tell by now on this weekend, it's just guys that are just priced way too cheap for their talent level. Again, I get this is a super loaded field, but there are some guys to me that just seem really mispriced, and Tommy Fleetwood is one of those people, priced sub 8K. So I'm going to be having quite a bit of Tommy Fleetwood as well. Louis O is someone that's more probably appropriately priced at 7.8, but I just like Louis O this weekend. He withdrew last weekend, kind of burned some people as well, but I think as long as he's healthy and everything's clicking, I think Louis O has a really solid possibility of, maybe getting a top 20 finish. And at this price point, it's really all you need from him. He's a guy that can score with the birdies, score really well. And as long as he makes the cut, and again, I think he has a really solid chance of getting that top 20 finish, which would be a really, really great price point, or a really great payout for his price point at 7,800. And then going down to the bottom here of the barrel at 7K, I'm not as confident in this person, but he has been clicking, and I can definitely see taking a chance on a Chris Kirk at that 7K. If Chris Kirk makes the cut, he has a real good chance of getting some momentum and scoring really, really highly going into the weekend as well. But again, someone I don't feel as confident in. But if I had, one spot left and I had 7K left, I would feel okay sliding Chris Kirk in there to help finish out my lineup, as long as I like everybody else in my build. So just want to mention him as well as more of a filler piece, but someone I did want to bring up in that low 7K range to help build your lineup. And then finishing out in the 6K range. So I can tell you right now, I probably won't get to anybody in the 6K range just based off my early builds. Again, I'm going for more of a balanced approach. So skipping out on some of the 10K dies and going more on that 9, 8, and 7K range. I don't really have a need to go down low into the 6K range, but if you wanted to stud up, these are probably my favorite picks in that 6K range, going with Sebastian Munoz, Ryan Moore, and Henrik Norlander. Munoz is a guy that we saw play really, really well towards the end of last season. Came out struggling a little bit to start off this season, but we know Munoz can score, and as he has a really high probability, of hopefully making the cut. And as long as he makes the cut, he's going to score really highly. And so, if you want to take a flyer on Munoz, I definitely don't hate it. Same thing can be said for Ryan Moore. And Henrik Norlander is always a guy that I just like using as a cheap value piece. He always seems to just be in this kind of mid to upper 6K range. And whenever he's there and I need him, he always usually comes through for me. And when I mentioned earlier when I won that 10K with Colin Morikawa, one of my value pieces was Henrik Norlander in that low 7K range. So Norlander, again, whenever he's there, I just kind of like to use him and plug him in if I need him. And he usually always comes through for me with making the cut and scoring decently enough for his price point. So I have no issues going right back to Henrik Norlander in this tournament. And that's going to cap off my thoughts and where I'm trying to go for this weekend in the Players Championship. Again, it's going to be a really, really exciting weekend of golf. All the top players in the world are going to be there duking it out to try to take home this trophy and this huge prize payout. And hopefully some of these players can help us, take home a prize payout of ourselves with all these big contests and tournaments that Draftkings is having this weekend. And so really looking forward to this weekend of golf. If you haven't, please subscribe and like this video. Subscribe to this channel. We're going to be having a lot more content, trying to get this out almost every day. For all the different sports going on. So we have NBA going on right now, going to be covering PGA, probably going to throw out some MMA videos out there, baseball, MLB when that starts up in a month. So a lot of good stuff going on here. Again, we're always trying to focus on building one lineup that can take down multiple contests. Again, just for golf, it's a little bit different just because it's such a high variance with the scoring potential and due to the fact that any golfer can kind of win any possible weekend. So, but it's one of my more favorite DFS sports to play, that's for sure. So again, like this video, subscribe, and let's go win some money this weekend, guys. Thank y'all.